Welcome to Spertus Museum, the Jewish Museum of Chicago. My name is Susan Youdovin and I'm the Curator of Education at Spertus. Our museum is the Jewish Museum of Chicago. It's about 35 years old and is one of the largest Jewish museums in the United States. While we're only 35 years old, the Jews in general, our people, are 3,500 years old. And you can learn something about the origins of the Jews in the book called the Torah. The Torah is the 5 books of Moses and is actually the first 5 books of the Hebrew Scripture, which is known also as the Old Testament, part of the Christian Bible. Jews are not the only people of the book. Christians are the people of the book, and as are Muslims, whose book is called the Quran, their holy scripture. Our holy scripture, our Torah, is written by a scribe. In Hebrew, the word is sofer. He takes a quill pen, and I don't know if you can make that out here, and he writes by hand every word in the scroll. It's written on leather, parchment scrolls, done by hand as a way of kind of connecting us with antiquity, with the way it was done 3,000 years ago. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, they all contain the basis of our understanding about God. And the Torah also provides us with guidelines about Jewish thought, Jewish belief, and Jewish life for individuals and the community. The Torah contains mitzvot, or commandments, approximately 613 of them, and that includes what we call the Big Ten Commandments. And the Torah also contains stories about the Jews and their history, starting with the creation of the world and ending with the Jews' entrance into the land of Canaan, the land of Israel, after their wandering in the desert. This Torah scroll is about 100 years old. It comes from North Africa and it's made out of deerskin parchment. It's a much rougher leather than I'm used to seeing in a Torah scroll, and it's very faded. It makes it look very old, but as I say, it's only 100 years old. Although the words of the Torah haven't changed in 3,500 years, the Torah is still a relevant document for Jews today and guides our lives every day. The way this happens is through an incredible process of interpretation and reinterpretation of the reinterpretation that gives rise to the customs that Jews observe even today. For instance, the prayer shawl, or the talit, is a fringed garment that's in fulfillment of the commandment in the Torah that you shall wear fringes on the corners of your garment. Jewish men wear these talesim, or talitot, to pray for the morning prayer and in the evening on Yom Kippur. The words of the Torah actually have relevance in several ways. The words of the Torah are wrapped in a scroll, or written in a scroll that's wrapped and put into these small boxes. They're actually wooden boxes covered by paper, and they have leather straps to bind them to a person's arm and to the spot between their eyes on the forehead. And this is in fulfillment of the commandment in the Torah that says you shall wear them as a sign upon your hand and as frontlets, or as some kind of a symbol between your eyes. The Torah is also used as a proof text because Jews have been very deeply involved in social activism. So that you have here a picture that kind of shows that sort of thing with Jesse Jackson, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, and Rabbi Robert Marks, that was taken sometime in the early 70s in Chicago when they banded together to try to create a more harmonious community. And the words of the Torah that go with this image are, "You must remember you were slaves in the land of Egypt." And speaking of slaves in the land of Egypt, the next to the last object here is a Seder plate. And the holiday of Passover celebrates the Jews' liberation from slavery in Egypt and their beginning of the Exodus, which would take 40 years in the desert before they would enter the Promised Land. Then the last little object in this case is a mezuzah, and it also contains scriptural verses that refer to it. It is written in the Torah that Jews are asked to put the mezuzah on the doorpost of their house and on their gates. And usually you can tell then a Jewish household because you'll see one of these small objects on the outside door. Some of the objects in this case are excellent evidence of how important the Torah is in Jewish life. These objects, many of them, are objects like jewelry that adorn and protect and decorate the Torah. For instance, you have these rimonim, which is Hebrew for pomegranates, and these are objects that fit over the ends of the Torah scroll, the rollers, and these come from Italy, and if you look at them carefully, they remind me of an Italian tower, perhaps the Leaning Tower of Pisa. They were made in 1810, and they're made of silver. And usually the objects that decorate the Torah scroll are made of precious metals or some kind of precious material. Again, this is a sign of respect and to show how important these objects and the Torah are in Jewish life. Another object that's used is the shield, and this is suspended from a chain and hung around the Torah over the rollers. And the last piece that would go on a Torah is this crown. That crown actually is very interesting. It shows that Jews don't usually put figurative or people or animals in some of their artwork. There are all kinds of interesting leaves, like an acanthus leaf, which is a very classic design from art. And there are various fruits and vegetables and maybe a little flower. And there's even a seashell in there as well. And then there are these round cartouches with inscriptions that may give the names of the donors. One of the most important things that you could know about Jewish ceremonial objects is that they are representing not a particular Jewish style, but more the place of their manufacture and the style and the time of their manufacture. So you have this lovely little beaker or goblet that's made out of silver from 18th century Germany, and it's used now as a wine cup for ceremonial purposes. Jews drink sweet wine to usher in all festivals. Together with reciting a blessing, the wine is then sipped. The next object in the case is a beautiful silver case for a Megillat Esther, or the Scroll of Esther. And this scroll contains the text of the story of Queen Esther and King Ahasuerus and the wicked Haman, and how Esther, with her bravery, saved the Jewish people from annihilation. Spertus Museum is dedicated to using its collection to tell the story of the Jewish people. And it's a story that shows a wide diversity of people. This comes from the fact that since the year about 71 CE, Jews have lived in a variety of places all over the world. And you can see this diversity represented in pictures of people who now live in Chicago. You have a man who is a guard at the Cook County Jail. He's from Chicago and he's a Jew. Another man who's a Jew who is a building contractor. This Jewish woman is an airline pilot, And this young woman in her bridal dress is a Jew from the country of Yemen in the Middle East who now lives in Chicago. This is a typical Yemenite bridal costume covered with very heavy silver jewelry and huge bits of amber and elaborate fabric and elaborate kinds of applique work and embroidery. And against a very busy background, her face is still that of a radiant bride. This woman works at Cook County Hospital and is a neonatal nurse. And then we have this image of a young boy living in Chicago who is celebrating his bar mitzvah. He's age 13 and he's reading from the Torah scroll as a rite of passage to show he is about to become a Jewish adult. It's just incredible to me that there are Jews that work in all walks of life, in all places, in all kinds of professions. They come in all shapes and sizes.